The fire alarm pierced through the silence of the elegant Meridian Hotel in Manhattan at 3:47 a.m. On the 23rd floor, two doors opened simultaneously. Crash! Two bodies collided with full force in the dark hallway. Arms tangled, balance was lost, and in a split second that felt like an eternity, their lips met. For 3 complete seconds, amid the chaos of the deafening alarm, Madison Clark, a 28-year-old investigative journalist known for her sharp tongue and fierce independence, was kissing a complete stranger. When they finally separated, she blinked at the most handsome man she'd ever seen. Brown hair tousled from sleep, green eyes that sparkled even in the dim light, and a smile that could melt the coldest heart in New York. "Wow," murmured Jake Morrison, a 30-year-old entrepreneur and CEO of Morrison Tech, still holding her arms. "If all fire alarms were like this, I can't believe this." Madison pushed him away forcefully, her face red with anger and embarrassment. You... I what?" Jake laughed, running his hand through his hair. "Technically, you kissed me. I was just leaving my room. I was escaping from a fire. Apparently not very quickly." The alarm stopped abruptly. In the sudden silence, the irritated voice of the manager echoed through the intercom. "False alarm. Sorry for the disturbance. Please return to your rooms." Madison looked around. The hallway was empty. They were the only guests on this floor. What was her luck? "Look," Jake approached, and she could smell that disturbing masculine cologne. "Let me introduce myself properly. Jake Morrison. And you are—" "Nobody," she replied quickly, starting to head back to her room. "Absolutely nobody to you. Wait," he gently grabbed her wrist. "I can't let you walk away like this." "Why not?" Jake smiled in a way that made her stomach do a somersault. "Because, sweetheart, you just made a serious mistake by kissing me." His green eyes sparkled with a mixture of amusement and determination. "Now you're going to have to be my wife." Madison blinked twice, processing what she had just heard. "I'm going to have to be your what?" "You heard me." Jake crossed his arms, clearly enjoying her reaction. "My Italian grandmother always said, if a girl kisses a Morrison in the middle of the night, it's a sign that fate has decided. And I never ignore fate." "You're crazy." Madison opened her room door forcefully. "I don't even know your full name." "Jake Morrison, Morrison Tech. Maybe you've heard of it. We're the fastest growing tech company in New York." She stopped. Morrison Tech? The company she'd been investigating for 3 months for questionable business practices? "Oh, no. Still here?" Jake moved closer, that devastating smile still on his face. "Will you have dinner with me tomorrow to discuss the details of our wedding?" "Never." "Great. I'll pick you up at 7. He started walking toward his own room. "Oh, and sweetheart?" "What?" "Wear something beautiful. I want to impress my future wife." His door closed with a soft click, leaving Madison standing in the hallway, mouth agape, heart beating wildly, and completely furious. She entered her room and threw herself on the bed, bringing her hands to her face. "Madison Clark," she murmured to herself, "what have you done this time?" Because one thing was certain. That had been the best and worst kiss of her life. And now she had to have dinner with the enemy. What a night. On the other side of the wall, Jake was lying in bed, smiling at the ceiling. In 10 years of building his company, he had never met someone who made him feel so alive. "Jake Morrison," he murmured to himself, "you're in trouble." And for the first time in his life, he was excited to be. Madison stared at her reflection in the hotel bathroom mirror at 6:45 p.m., wearing her only decent dress, a navy blue number that she'd packed for a business meeting that got canceled. "This is insane," she muttered, applying lipstick with shaking hands. "I'm having dinner with the man I'm supposed to expose. The man who thinks we're getting married because of a 3-second accident." Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "I'm in the lobby. You look beautiful, by the way." Madison rushed to the window and looked down. 23 floors below, Jake Morrison stood by a black Tesla, looking up at her building with binoculars. "What the—" She grabbed her phone and typed furiously, "Are you stalking me?" His reply came instantly. "It's called being thorough. Future husbands need to be prepared. Elevator or stairs?" "This is not happening," she typed back. "I'll wait. I'm very patient when it comes to destiny." Madison groaned, grabbed her purse, and headed for the elevator. She had a job to do: get information about Morrison Tech's questionable partnerships. The fact that Jake Morrison was devastatingly handsome and had somehow made her heart skip beats was completely irrelevant. When the elevator doors opened in the lobby, Jake was there waiting with a single white rose. "You came," he said, genuinely surprised. "Don't get any ideas. I'm only here because—" She paused, realizing she couldn't exactly say, "Because I'm investigating your company." "Because you seem like the type who would stand here all night." "Guilty as charged." "Adi," he offered his arm. "Shall we?" The restaurant he'd chosen was 11 Madison Park, one of the most exclusive places in the city. Madison's journalist salary definitely didn't cover places like this. "Table for Morrison," Jake told the hostess, who immediately brightened. "Mr. Morrison, your usual table is ready." As they were seated at a corner table with a stunning view of the city, Madison couldn't help but be impressed despite herself. "You eat here often?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Special occasions only." Jake's green eyes twinkled. "First date with my future wife definitely qualifies." "We are not." "Getting married, I know. You've mentioned that several times." He signaled the waiter. "Champagne?" "I don't drink on—" She started to say investigations but caught herself. "On first dates with crazy people." "Fair enough. Water it is." The waiter approached. "Good evening, Mr. Morrison." "The usual?" "Actually, we'll need a few minutes." Jake handed back the menus without looking. "And bring us your best bottle of sparkling cider. We're celebrating." "Celebrating what exactly?" Madison asked when they were alone. "The beginning of our love story." Madison nearly choked on her water. "Love story? We met 18 hours ago, in a hallway, during a fire alarm. The best love stories always start with chaos." Jake leaned forward, suddenly serious. "Tell me something real about yourself, Madison." The way he said her name made her stomach flutter. "How do you even know my name?" "You dropped your press badge when we collided." "Madison Clark, investigative journalist for the New York Tribune." He pulled the badge from his jacket pocket. "Very impressive credentials, by the way." Madison's blood ran cold. Her press badge, the one that clearly identified her as a journalist. If he knew she was press— "Relax," Jake said, apparently reading her panic. "I'm not going to sue you for stalking me." "I am not stalking you." "No? Then what were you doing on the same floor as me in a hotel, Madison? Pure coincidence?" This was it. Her cover was blown. She might as well come clean. "Fine. You want the truth?" "Always." "I'm investigating Morrison Tech." Jake's expression didn't change. "I know." "You know?" "Madison, you've been following my company for 3 months. You attended our product launch last month, tried to interview my employees at the coffee shop across from our building, and submitted 17 requests for official interviews through our PR department." He smiled. "Did you really think I wouldn't notice a beautiful woman asking that many questions about me?" Madison felt her face burn. "So this whole dinner thing is what? Revenge?" "Revenge?" Jake laughed, a genuine sound that made her heart skip. "Madison, I asked you to dinner because in 10 years of running a company, you're the first person who's made me feel like Jake, the person instead of Jake, the CEO. That's not true? When you looked at me in that hallway last night, you didn't see dollar signs or business opportunities. You saw me. Just me." He reached across the table and gently touched her hand. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Madison stared at their joined hands. His touch was warm, gentle, and completely disarming. Jake, ask me anything you want to know about the company. I'll answer honestly. Just like that? Just like that. Madison pulled out her phone and opened her voice recorder app. Is it true that Morrison Tech has been acquiring smaller companies and then shutting them down to eliminate competition? Yes. She blinked. She'd expected denials, lawyers, corporate doublespeak. Yes? It's called strategic acquisition. We buy struggling companies, integrate their best talent and technology into Morrison Tech, and discontinue redundant products. We've saved over 300 jobs that way. But the companies themselves were failing, Madison. We gave their employees career opportunities instead of unemployment lines. Jake's voice was earnest. Every decision I make, I ask myself, how does this help people? Madison studied his face. Either he was the world's best liar or... What about the allegations of workplace harassment? 2 employees filed complaints last year. Both were investigated immediately, the harassers were fired within 48 hours, and we implemented a new company-wide training program. Jake's jaw tightened. I don't tolerate that behavior. Ever. The financial irregularities. You mean the charity donations that weren't publicly announced? We donate 30% of our profits to education programs in underserved communities. I don't believe in using charity as a marketing tool. With each answer, Madison felt her carefully constructed case against Morrison Tech crumbling. Either Jake Morrison was telling the truth, or he was the most convincing corporate villain she'd ever met. Why are you telling me all this? She asked quietly. Because I want you to trust me. Jake squeezed her hand gently. And because tomorrow I'm offering you a job. A what? Head of Corporate Ethics and Transparency. You'd investigate our own company. Full access to everything. Report directly to me. Name your salary. Madison's mind reeled. You want to hire the journalist who's been trying to expose you? I want to hire the woman who cares enough about the truth to spend 3 months making sure I'm worthy of it. Jake's smile was soft, genuine. What do you say, future Mrs. Morrison? Before Madison could answer, her phone rang. Her editor's number. I have to take this, she said, standing. Marcus? What? Are you sure? When did this happen? Jake watched her face go pale. Okay, I'll be there in an hour. She hung up and looked at Jake with wide eyes. I have to go. There's been a break-in at the Tribune offices. Someone was looking for files on Morrison Tech. Jake stood immediately. I'll drive you. Jake, no, I can't ask you to... Madison. He was already pulling out his wallet and leaving money on the table. Someone just tried to steal information about my company from your office. We're in this together now. As they rushed toward the exit, Madison couldn't shake the feeling that their accidental kiss had started something much bigger than either of them realized. And for the first time in her career, she wasn't sure who the real story was anymore. The Tesla's autopilot hummed quietly as Jake navigated through Manhattan traffic at 9:30 p.m. Madison sat in the passenger seat, frantically calling her contacts while trying not to notice how good Jake smelled or how his hands looked on the steering wheel. Focus, Madison, she muttered to herself. Did you say something? Jake glanced over, concern evident in his green eyes. Just thinking out loud. She dialed another number. Hey, Detective Rodriguez? It's Madison Clark. I heard about the break-in at the Tribune. What do you mean, sophisticated operation? Jake's jaw tightened as he listened to her side of the conversation. Professional equipment? Like what kind of... Okay, I'll be there soon. Madison hung up and turned to Jake. This wasn't some random burglary. Someone used high-tech equipment to bypass the security system and went straight to the filing cabinets containing corporate investigation files. Specifically yours? Mine and 3 other journalists. But Jake... Madison hesitated. The Morrison Tech file was the only one completely emptied. Jake pulled over to the curb and parked. Madison, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Morrison Tech has been receiving anonymous threats for the past 6 months. Someone's been trying to sabotage our government contracts. Government contracts? You never mentioned those during dinner. Because they're classified. We develop cybersecurity software for federal agencies. Jake ran his hand through his hair. If someone's after your investigation files, it might not be about exposing Morrison Tech. It might be about protecting whoever's really behind the threats. Madison's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging or face the consequences. This is your only warning. She showed Jake the message. His face darkened. That's it. I'm calling security. Jake, no. If we involve more people. Madison, someone just threatened you because of your connection to me. I'm not taking any chances. He was already dialing. Marcus, it's Jake Morrison. I need a full security detail. Yes, immediately. The Tribune building on West 40th. You have your own security team? Madison asked. Sweetheart, I'm a tech CEO with government contracts. I have better security than most senators. Jake put the car back in drive. And starting right now, you're under my protection. I am not your responsibility. You became my responsibility the moment you kissed me in that hallway. That was an accident. Best accident of my life, Jake said with a grin that made Madison's heart skip beats. And I protect what's mine. I am not yours. We'll see about that. 20 minutes later, they stood outside the Tribune building as police officers interviewed other journalists. The scene looked like something from a spy movie. Broken glass, scattered papers, and very official-looking people with badges. Detective Rodriguez approached them. Late 40s, graying hair, and the tired look of someone who'd seen too much. Madison, glad you're safe. And you are? He asked Jake. Jake Morrison, Morrison Tech. The detective's eyebrows rose. The Morrison Tech that someone broke in here to investigate? The same one. Interesting. Mind if I ask what you two were doing together tonight? Madison and Jake exchanged glances. Having dinner, Madison said quickly. It was our first date, Jake added, with a smile that made Madison want to kick him. Actually, we're engaged. We are not engaged, Madison practically shouted. Detective Rodriguez looked between them with amusement. Right. Well, whatever your relationship status, someone wanted your Morrison Tech files very badly, Madison. They also left this. He handed her a note. Some secrets are worth killing for. Stop now. Jake stepped closer to Madison, his protective instincts clearly activated. Rodriguez, I want police protection for Ms. Clark. Jake, I don't need... Yes, you do. Jake's voice was firm. Madison, whoever did this knows where you work, has your phone number, and obviously considers you a threat. This isn't about your investigation anymore. This is about keeping you alive. Madison looked at the note again, her hands shaking slightly. As an investigative journalist, she'd received threats before, but never anything this professional. There's something else, Detective Rodriguez said. The security footage shows 2 people, but they knew exactly where the cameras were. They avoided every single one except for 30 seconds in the lobby. Did you get a clear image? Clear enough. One of them was wearing a Morrison Tech employee badge. Jake went very still. That's impossible. All our badges have GPS tracking. If an employee was here, I'd know about it. Unless someone cloned a badge, Madison said quietly. Jake, who has access to employee information? Just me, my assistant Carmen, and... Jake's expression darkened. And my former business partner, Vincent Cross. Former partner? I bought him out 8 months ago when I discovered he was selling company information to competitors. He swore he'd make me pay for ruining his reputation. Detective Rodriguez was taking notes. This Vincent Cross, where can we find him? That's the problem, Jake said grimly. He disappeared 3 months ago. His apartment was cleared out, His phone disconnected. It's like he vanished. Madison's journalist instincts kicked in. Jake, the threats against Morrison Tech, when did they start? About 6 months ago. 3 months after you bought out Cross. 3 months before he disappeared. Madison was thinking out loud. What if he's been planning this whole time? What if my investigation wasn't exposing Morrison Tech? It was getting close to exposing him. Jake stared at her. You think Vincent's been using other companies to bid against us for government contracts, using inside information? It would explain everything. The threats, the break-in, why he wanted my files. Madison looked at the note again. Jake, what kind of government contracts are we talking about? Cybersecurity for military databases, financial systems, infrastructure protection. Jake's face paled. Madison, if Vincent has been selling access to foreign governments, that's treason, Detective Rodriguez finished, and people have killed for a lot less. A black SUV pulled up to the curb. 3 men in suits got out. That's my security team, Jake said. Madison, I want you to come stay at my penthouse tonight. It's the safest place in the city. Jake, I can't just... Please. Jake took her hands, his green eyes serious. I can't protect you if I don't know where you are. And right now, protecting you is the most important thing in my world. Madison looked around at the broken glass, the police cars, the threatening note in her hand. For the first time in her career, she was in over her head. Okay, she said quietly. But just for tonight. Jake's relief was visible. Just for tonight. Nay. As they walked toward the SUV, Madison couldn't shake the feeling that just for tonight was about to become a lot more complicated, especially when Jake whispered in her ear, Don't worry, future Mrs. Morrison, I'll keep you safe. Despite everything, Madison found herself smiling. You're never going to let that go, are you? Not until you say yes. That's never going to happen. We'll see about that. As the SUV pulled away from the Tribune building, neither of them noticed the figure watching from the shadows across the street, or the camera lens glinting in the darkness. Vincent Cross smiled coldly and made a phone call. They're together now? Perfect. Initiate Phase 2. Jake's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a glass tower overlooking Central Park. As the private elevator opened directly into his living space, Madison stepped into what looked like something from a luxury magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern art, and furniture that probably cost more than her annual salary. Welcome to my humble home, Jake said, tossing his keys onto a marble console table. Humble? Madison walked toward the windows, her heels clicking on the polished concrete floors. Jake, this place is bigger than my entire apartment building. Why, it's just a place to sleep. He loosened his tie, and Madison tried not to notice how the simple gesture made her stomach flutter. Are you hungry? I could order something, or I make a mean grilled cheese sandwich. You cook? Don't sound so surprised. I lived on ramen and determination for the first 5 years of building Morrison Tech. I learned to cook out of pure survival. Jake headed toward the kitchen, which was all granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. Besides, my Italian grandmother would rise from her grave if I couldn't feed my future wife properly. We are not getting married, I know. Jake opened the refrigerator and started pulling out ingredients. But you have to admit, we make a pretty good team. You're an investigative journalist. I'm a tech CEO with apparently dangerous enemies. It's like a modern-day romantic thriller. Madison perched on one of the bar stools, watching him work. There was something unexpectedly intimate about seeing Jake Morrison, the powerful CEO she'd been investigating for months, buttering bread and heating a pan like any regular person. Tell me about Vincent Cross, she said, pulling out her phone to take notes. What was he like as a business partner? Jake's hands paused for a moment. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant with code and system architecture, but he flipped the first sandwich. Vincent always believed the ends justified the means. If we needed information, he'd find a way to get it, regardless of legality. If we needed an advantage, he'd create one, even if it meant sabotaging competitors. That must have caused problems. For years, I told myself his methods were just aggressive business tactics. Morrison Tech was growing so fast, I convinced myself we needed someone willing to push boundaries. Jake plated the first sandwich and started on the second. Then I discovered he'd been selling our client data to competitors and using company resources to bid against us for contracts. That's when you bought him out? That's when I fired him and bought out his shares to protect the company. Jake's jaw tightened. Vincent didn't take it well. He accused me of betraying him, said I'd stolen his life's work, threatened to destroy everything we'd built together. Madison watched Jake's face as he talked. The guilt and regret were evident, even though he'd clearly made the right choice. "You feel responsible for what he's doing now," she observed. "Wouldn't you?" Jake set a perfectly golden grilled cheese sandwich in front of her, along with a bowl of tomato soup that smelled incredible. "I created the monster, Madison. Every threat Morrison Tech has received, every danger you're in now, it's because I didn't stop Vincent sooner." Madison took a bite of the sandwich. It was surprisingly delicious. "Jake, you can't blame yourself for someone else's choices. Vincent chose to steal data. Vincent chose to disappear and plan whatever this is. You chose to protect your company and your employees." "Is that your professional opinion, Dr. Clark?" Jake asked with a small smile. "That's my personal opinion, Mr. Morrison." Madison surprised herself with the gentle tone. "And this is really good grilled cheese. Family recipe. Well, if you consider add extra cheese and don't burn it a family recipe." They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the city lights twinkling beyond the massive windows. Madison found herself studying Jake when she thought he wasn't looking. Without the corporate armor of expensive suits and boardroom confidence, he seemed younger, more vulnerable. "Can I ask you something?" Madison said eventually. "Anything." "Ha, why aren't you married? I mean, successful, handsome, apparently decent at cooking." She gestured around the penthouse. "This place screams perfect bachelor pad designed to impress women." Jake laughed, a genuine sound that filled the large space. "Believe it or not, most women I've dated have been more interested in Morrison Tech's stock price than in me. It gets old pretty quickly." "That's cynical. That's realistic." Jake carried their dishes to the sink. "When you have money, Madison, you never know if people like you for who you are or what you can provide. It's lonely." Madison felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. She'd spent months thinking of Jake Morrison as a powerful corporate figure, but sitting in his kitchen, she saw something different. Someone different. "Is that why you asked me to dinner? Because I was investigating you instead of trying to impress you?" "Partly." Jake turned to face her, leaning against the counter. "But mostly because when you looked at me in that hallway, you saw me. Not my bank account, not my company, not what I could do for your career. Just me. Jake, I know it sounds crazy. I know we've known each other for less than 48 hours. But Madison..." He moved closer, and she could smell his cologne again. "I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you." Madison's heart was beating so fast she was sure he could hear it. "How do you feel about me?" "Like I've been waiting my whole life for you to collide with me in a hallway." Before Madison could respond, her phone rang. Detective Rodriguez's number. "I should take this," she said, trying to ignore the disappointment in Jake's eyes. "Rodriguez? Did you find something?" Madison listened for a moment, her expression growing serious. "Are you sure? Okay, we'll be careful. Thanks for calling." She hung up and looked at Jake. "Vincent Cross was spotted at LaGuardia Airport 3 hours ago. He's in New York." Jake's protective instincts immediately activated. "Did Rodriguez say anything else?" "The FBI is now involved. Apparently, Vincent's been selling Morrison Tech's government contract information to foreign entities for months. They've been building a case, and my investigation accidentally got close to exposing the whole operation. That's why he wanted your files. And that's why he's willing to kill to stop me." Madison looked around the penthouse. "Jake, maybe I should go to a hotel. If Vincent knows we're together." "Madison, look at me." Jake's voice was firm but gentle. "Vincent Cross is a brilliant tech expert with government secrets and apparently no moral boundaries. This penthouse has a security system that I designed personally. There is nowhere safer for you to be than right here with me. But what if nothing? You're staying here, and that's final. You can't just order me around." "I'm not ordering you, I'm asking you." Jake stepped closer, his green eyes intense. "Please stay. Let me protect you." Madison looked at him, really looked at him. The concern in his eyes was genuine. The fear for her safety was real. And underneath it all, there was something else. Something that made her heart race and her knees weak. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'll stay." Jake's relief was visible. "Good. There's a guest bedroom down the hall with its own bathroom. You'll have complete privacy." "Thank you." "Madison?" Jake's voice stopped her as she started toward the hallway. "Yeah? For what it's worth, I'm glad Vincent's threats brought you into my life, even if the circumstances are terrible." Madison felt her cheeks warm. "Jake, I know. We're not getting married." He grinned. "But a guy can dream, right?" As Madison headed toward the guest bedroom, she couldn't shake the feeling that staying in Jake's penthouse was either the smartest or most dangerous decision she'd ever made. 30 minutes later, she lay in the most comfortable bed she'd ever experienced, wearing one of Jake's Morrison Tech t-shirts because she hadn't brought any clothes. The shirt smelled like him, clean, masculine, and oddly comforting. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Enjoy your last night, Madison. Tomorrow everything changes." Madison stared at the message, her blood running cold. Vincent Cross somehow knew she was in Jake's penthouse. Which meant a soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Madison, are you okay? I saw your light was still on." Jake's voice was muffled through the door, but she could hear the concern. "I'm fine," she called back, not wanting to worry him. "Can I come in? Just for a minute?" Madison looked down at herself. Bare legs, oversized t-shirt, hair in a messy ponytail. Not exactly the professional image she'd been maintaining. "Just a second." She grabbed a throw blanket from the chair and wrapped it around herself before opening the door. Jake stood in the hallway wearing gray sweatpants and a white t-shirt that showed off his athletic build. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd just showered. "I wanted to make sure you had everything you needed," he said, but his eyes were scanning her face with concern. "Madison, you look upset. What happened?" Madison showed him the text message. Jake's expression darkened immediately. "That's it. I'm calling additional security." "Jake, no. If we keep escalating—" "Madison, he knows you're here, in my home. That means he's been watching us, probably for hours." Jake ran his hand through his damp hair. "I should have been more careful. I should have thought about putting you in danger by bringing you here. This isn't your fault. Isn't it? Vincent's my former partner. You're in danger because of your investigation into my company. Everything leads back to me." Madison stepped closer, still clutching the blanket around herself. "Jake, look at me." He met her eyes reluctantly. "Vincent Cross is a criminal who's chosen to threaten and hurt people. You are not responsible for his choices." Madison reached out and touched his arm gently. "You've done nothing but try to protect me since this started." "Madison." "What?" "I need you to know something." Jake's voice was quiet, serious. "If Vincent hurts you because of me, I'll never forgive myself." "Jake, let me finish. I also need you to know that having you here, in my home, wearing my shirt—" His green eyes met hers. "It feels right in a way I didn't know was possible." Madison's heart stopped. They were standing close now, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his green eyes, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his skin. "Jake, we can't. This is complicated." "Everything worth having is complicated." His hand came up to gently touch her cheek. "Madison, I know this is crazy. I know we've known each other for 2 days. But what I feel for you—" "What do you feel for me?" she whispered. "Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." For a moment they just looked at each other. Madison could feel herself being pulled into something she wasn't sure she was ready for. Jake Morrison was supposed to be a story, an investigation, a career opportunity. He wasn't supposed to be this gentle, protective man who made grilled cheese sandwiches and looked at her like she was precious. "I should go back to bed," she said finally, though she made no move to step away from his touch. "You should," Jake agreed, but he didn't move either. "This is a bad idea. Probably the worst idea I've ever had." "Jake." "Madison." And then, just like in the hallway 2 nights ago, their lips met. But this time it wasn't an accident. This time Jake's arms came around her waist, and Madison's hands fisted in his t-shirt, and the kiss was soft and sweet, and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. "That was—" Madison started. "The second best kiss of my life," Jake finished with a smile. "Second best? The first one got me a fiancé. This one might get me a wife." Madison laughed despite herself. "You're incorrigible." "I'm persistent. There's a difference." Jake stepped back reluctantly. "Get some sleep, Madison. Tomorrow we figure out how to stop Vincent and keep you safe." "Jake?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for everything. Thank you for trusting me." As Madison closed the door and leaned against it, she realized that somewhere between the grilled cheese sandwiches and the gentle kisses, Jake Morrison had stopped being a story and started being something much more dangerous. He was starting to feel like home, and that terrified her more than any threat Vincent Cross could make. Outside, 23 floors below, Vincent Cross lowered his binoculars and smiled coldly. Jake Morrison thought his penthouse was safe. Vincent was about to prove him very, very wrong. Phase 3 would begin at dawn. Madison woke to the smell of coffee and bacon at 7:15 a.m. For a moment she forgot where she was. The bed was too comfortable, the sheets too expensive, the view of Central Park too perfect. Then reality crashed back. Vincent Cross, death threats, and the fact that she'd spent the night in Jake Morrison's penthouse after kissing him like her life depended on it. She found Jake in the kitchen, fully dressed in a charcoal gray suit, his hair perfectly styled, looking every inch the powerful CEO she'd first started investigating. The transformation from last night's vulnerable t-shirt-wearing man was jarring. "Good morning, beautiful," he said without turning around, somehow sensing her presence. "Coffee's ready, and I made breakfast. We need to talk about what happens next." Madison was still wearing his Morrison Tech t-shirt, her hair a disaster, feeling completely out of place in his pristine kitchen. "Jake, about last night, was perfect." He turned to face her, his green eyes warm but serious. "Madison, I meant everything I said. But right now we need to focus on keeping you alive." He gestured to his laptop, which was open on the kitchen island displaying what looked like security footage. "My building's security system picked up some interesting activity overnight." Madison moved closer, accepting the coffee cup he offered. On the screen she could see a figure in a baseball cap examining the building's exterior at various points throughout the night. "Vincent? Has to be. He's been mapping the building's security, looking for weaknesses." Jake's jaw was tight. "Madison, I've been thinking about this all night. Vincent knows where you work, where you live, and now where you're staying. He's always one step ahead because he's predicting our moves. So what do you suggest? We stop running and start hunting." Jake pulled up another screen showing financial records. "I've been digging into Vincent's activities since he disappeared. Look at this." The records showed a complex web of shell companies and international transfers. Madison's journalist instincts immediately kicked in. He's been busy. Jake, these amounts, we're talking millions of dollars. All traced back to the government contracts he's been sabotaging. But here's the interesting part. Jake highlighted a series of transactions. Every major payment he's received corresponds to Morrison Tech losing a contract bid. He's not just selling our information. He's actively destroying our business relationships. Madison studied the screen, her mind racing. This isn't just about revenge anymore. This is about completely eliminating Morrison Tech as competition. Exactly. And the contracts he's targeting. Jake's expression darkened. They're all critical infrastructure projects. Power grids, financial networks, transportation systems. If Vincent gives foreign entities access to sabotage those systems, it's not just corporate espionage, it's national security. Madison set down her coffee cup. Jake, we have to call the FBI. I already did. They're sending agents over this morning to interview both of us and set up protective custody. Protective custody? Madison, Vincent's not just threatening you to stop your investigation anymore. He's threatening you to get to me. As long as you're in danger, I can't think clearly, can't focus on stopping him. Jake moved closer to her. He's using my feelings for you as a weapon. The admission hung in the air between them. My feelings for you. Not attraction, not interest. Feelings. Jake? Before she could respond, every light in the penthouse flickered and went out. The coffee maker stopped humming. Even the digital displays on the appliances went dark. That's not possible, Jake said quietly. This building has 3 independent power sources. Madison's phone buzzed with a text. Now you understand how serious I am. Lobby, 5 minutes. Come alone, or the power stays off permanently. Everywhere in Manhattan. Jake was already moving toward a hidden panel in the wall, revealing what looked like a high-tech security station. Madison, Vincent just hacked the power grid. This isn't just about threatening us anymore. He can do that? He helped design the cybersecurity systems for half the infrastructure in this city. Jake was typing rapidly on a backup computer that had apparently switched to battery power. Madison, look at this. The screen showed a map of Manhattan with various red zones blinking. Power outages spreading across the city in a deliberate pattern. He's demonstrating his capabilities, showing us, and probably the FBI, exactly what he can do if we don't cooperate. Jake's fingers flew across the keyboard. Hospitals, emergency services, traffic systems. Madison, people could die if this continues. Another text arrived. 4 minutes, Madison. Don't test me. I have to go down there, Madison said, reaching for her clothes from yesterday. Absolutely not. Jake caught her arm gently but firmly. Madison, this is exactly what he wants. He gets you alone, eliminates the threat to his operation, and probably kills me in the process. Jake, look around. Madison gestured at the darkened penthouse. He's holding an entire city hostage. We can't just... We can. And we will. Jake was still typing, lines of code scrolling across the screen. Madison, Vincent taught me everything I know about cybersecurity, but he didn't teach me everything I know about him. What do you mean? Vincent has one weakness he's never been able to overcome. His ego. He always has to prove he's the smartest person in the room. Jake's fingers paused over the keyboard. He's not just demonstrating his power, he's showing off. And when Vincent shows off, he gets sloppy. Madison watched Jake work, seeing a side of him she'd never glimpsed before. This wasn't the charming CEO or the protective man from last night. This was Jake Morrison, the tech genius, the man who'd built a multi-million-dollar company from nothing. What are you doing? I'm tracing his hack backward. Every time Vincent accesses a system, he leaves a digital signature. It's like a fingerprint. Lines of code continued scrolling. There, got him. A new window opened showing a real-time location tracker. A red dot was blinking in the lobby of their building. Vincent's in the building? Madison felt a chill run down her spine. Not just in the building. He's using the building's own security system to coordinate the citywide attacks. Jake stood up, his expression grim. Madison, I need you to listen very carefully. Vincent's not planning to negotiate. He's planning to eliminate both of us and disappear with enough stolen government secrets to retire as a very wealthy man. Madison's phone rang. Unknown number. Answer it, Jake said. Put it on speaker. Hello, Madison? Vincent Cross's voice was smooth, educated, with just a hint of an accent she couldn't place. I trust you're enjoying the demonstration? Vincent, Madison tried to keep her voice steady. What do you want? What I've always wanted. Justice. Jake Morrison destroyed my life, stole my work, and turned me into a criminal. Now I'm going to return the favor. By hurting innocent people? Vincent laughed, a cold sound that made Madison's skin crawl. Madison, there are no innocent people in this story. You're a journalist who's been stalking my former company for months. Jake's a thief who built his fortune on my innovations. And I'm simply a businessman reclaiming what's rightfully mine. Jake grabbed the phone. Vincent, this is between you and me. Leave Madison out of it. Ah, Jake. Still trying to play the hero, I see. How touching. Vincent's voice dripped with sarcasm. Tell me, old friend, how does it feel to know that your precious Madison is about to die because of your selfishness? If you hurt her, you'll what? Call the police? The FBI? Jake, I control half the communication systems in this city right now. I can make phone calls disappear, redirect emergency services, even crash the stock market if I'm feeling ambitious. Madison looked at Jake, seeing the fear and fury warring in his green eyes. She'd never seen him look so helpless. What do you want? Jake asked quietly. I want you to come down to the lobby, alone. You're going to transfer every Morrison Tech asset to my control, and then you're going to confess publicly that you built your company using stolen technology. And if I do that? Then Madison lives, the power comes back on, and I disappear forever with what was always mine. And if I don't? Then Madison dies, this entire city goes dark permanently, and I release every government secret Morrison Tech has ever handled to the highest bidder. Either way, you lose everything, Jake. But this way, you can choose what matters most to you. The line went dead. Madison stared at Jake, who was already heading toward his bedroom. Where are you going? To get dressed. Jake's voice was flat, emotionless. I'm going downstairs. Jake, no. You can't trust him. Madison, he's got an entire city hostage. He's got you threatened. He's got everything he needs to destroy millions of lives. Jake stopped at his bedroom door. What choice do I have? We fight back. You said he gets sloppy when he shows off. Use that. Madison, this isn't a movie. This is real life, and real people are going to get hurt if I don't do what he wants. Jake's shoulders sagged. Vincent's right about one thing. This is all my fault. I created this monster. I have to be the one to stop him. Madison watched the man she was falling in love with prepare to sacrifice everything to protect her and the city. The injustice of it made her furious. Jake Morrison, you listen to me. She marched into his bedroom, where he was changing into a fresh shirt. I've spent 3 months investigating you, and you know what I found? A man who employs over 1,000 people and treats them like family. A man who donates millions to charity without publicizing it. A man who just spent all night trying to protect a woman he barely knows because it's the right thing to do. Jake paused in buttoning his shirt. Madison, I'm not finished. She moved closer, her eyes blazing. Vincent Cross is a criminal who's chosen to threaten innocent people to get revenge on you. You are not responsible for his choices. You are not going to sacrifice yourself because he can't handle the consequences of his own actions. Then what do you suggest? Madison pulled out her phone and started dialing. I suggest we call in some backup. Who are you calling? Detective Rodriguez, the FBI, and my editor at the Tribune. If Vincent wants to play games with the media and law enforcement, let's give him more attention than he can handle. Jake stared at her. Madison, that could backfire. He could… he could what? He's already threatening to kill us and destroy the city. What's the worst that could happen? Madison held his gaze. Jake, I'm an investigative journalist. This is what I do. I expose the truth about bad people doing bad things. Vincent Cross just gave me the biggest story of my career. And if he retaliates? Then we face it together. Madison reached out and took his hand. Jake, 2 days ago I thought you were the villain in this story. Now I know the truth. Vincent Cross is the villain, and I'm not going to let him win. Jake squeezed her hand, hope flickering in his green eyes for the first time since the power went out. You realize this is crazy, right? Taking on a man who can control the city's infrastructure? Crazy seems to be working out pretty well for us so far. Madison smiled. After all, our relationship started with an accidental collision and a marriage proposal from a stranger. How much crazier can things get? Madison Clark, Jake said softly. I think I'm falling in love with you. Good, Madison replied, standing on her toes to kiss him quickly. Because I think I'm falling in love with you too. And I'll be darned if I'm going to let Vincent Cross ruin that. As Madison started making phone calls, Jake felt something he hadn't experienced since this nightmare began. Hope. Madison was right. They were stronger together than apart. And Vincent Cross was about to learn that Jake Morrison hadn't built a successful company by backing down from fights. Outside the penthouse 23 floors below, Vincent Cross checked his watch and smiled. Jake was taking too long to come downstairs. Time to increase the pressure. He typed a command into his tablet, and across Manhattan every traffic light turned red simultaneously. Phase 4 was beginning, and this time he wouldn't give them a choice. But Vincent had made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated the woman Jake Morrison was willing to fight for. And Madison Clark had just become very, very angry. In the penthouse, Madison finished her call with Detective Rodriguez and turned to Jake with a determined smile. Okay, Mr. Morrison, here's what we're going to do. Vincent wants a public confession? Let's give him one he'll never forget. Jake looked at the fierce, brilliant woman standing in his bedroom, wearing his t-shirt and planning to take down a dangerous criminal, and realized that whatever happened next, he was exactly where he was meant to be. With her. 1 hour later, the lobby of Jake's building had been transformed into something resembling a war room. Detective Rodriguez had arrived with a full FBI cybercrime unit. Madison's editor Marcus had brought a complete news crew, and Jake's security team had established a perimeter that would make the Secret Service proud. Madison stood at the center of it all, no longer wearing Jake's t-shirt but dressed in a sharp black blazer she'd borrowed from his assistant Carmen, looking every inch the investigative journalist who was about to break the biggest story of her career. Vincent Cross thinks he's playing chess, Madison said to the assembled team. But he's actually playing checkers. He's so focused on destroying Jake that he's made himself vulnerable. FBI agent Sarah Chen, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s with graying hair and sharp eyes, looked skeptical. Ms. Clark, with all due respect, Vincent Cross has demonstrated the ability to control critical infrastructure across Manhattan. He's holding the entire city hostage. This isn't a game. You're absolutely right, Agent Chen. It's not a game. Madison pulled up Vincent's financial records on her laptop. It's a performance, and every good performance needs an audience. Jake, now wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit that somehow made his green eyes even more striking, moved to stand beside Madison. The partnership between them was obvious to everyone in the room. They moved in sync, finished each other's thoughts, and radiated the kind of unified determination that came from absolute trust. Agent Chen, Jake said, Vincent's weakness has always been his need for recognition. He didn't just disappear 3 months ago. He's been planning this entire scenario as the ultimate revenge fantasy. He wants to publicly humiliate me, destroy everything I've built, and prove that he was always the superior intellect. So we give him exactly what he wants, Madison continued. A public stage, media attention, and the chance to gloat about his superiority. Detective Rodriguez, who had been quietly observing the interaction between Madison and Jake with the amused expression of someone watching a romantic comedy unfold in real time, cleared his throat. And then what? We let him confess to terrorism on live television? Exactly. Madison's smile was sharp, predatory. Vincent Cross is brilliant with technology, but he's an amateur when it comes to media manipulation. The moment he starts gloating on camera, he's going to incriminate himself beyond any possibility of escape. Agent Chen was studying the financial records Madison had compiled. These shell companies, the international transfers. Ms. Clark, how long did it take you to put this together? 3 months of investigation, plus Jake's inside knowledge of Vincent's methods. Madison looked at Jake with something that made several people in the room exchange knowing glances. We make a good team. The best team, Jake said quietly, and the look that passed between them was so intimate that Detective Rodriguez actually coughed to break the tension. Marcus, Madison's editor, a grizzled man in his 60s who'd seen every type of story imaginable, was setting up camera equipment with the efficiency of someone who'd covered everything from political scandals to natural disasters. Madison, you sure about this? If Vincent's as dangerous as everyone says. Marcus, I've been chasing this story for months. Vincent Cross has committed treason, corporate espionage, terrorism, and attempted murder. I'm not backing down now. Madison's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. Besides, I have the best protection in the city. She looked at Jake, who was coordinating with his security team through an earpiece, and felt that flutter in her stomach that had become increasingly familiar over the past 3 days. Somehow, in the middle of the most dangerous situation of her life, she'd found the most amazing man she'd ever met. Jake caught her looking and winked, which made Agent Chen roll her eyes. Focus, people. We have a terrorist to catch. Carmen, Jake's assistant, approached with a tablet. Mr. Morrison, I've prepared the press release for Morrison Tech's shareholders. Should I send it out after the arrest? Hold on that, Carmen. Let's see how this plays out first. Jake's attention was split between multiple screens showing the city's power grid status, but Madison noticed he never lost track of where she was in the room. Special Agent Miller, Chen's partner, was coordinating with the building's security. Mr. Morrison, we need to discuss evacuation procedures for the other residents. Already handled, Jake replied. I sent an alert to all residents an hour ago suggesting they visit friends or family today. The building is essentially empty except for essential personnel. Madison felt another surge of admiration. Even in crisis mode, Jake was thinking about protecting innocent people. Dr. Emma Reeves, Morrison Tech's head of cybersecurity, arrived with her laptop team. A brilliant woman in her 30s with purple-streaked hair and multiple engineering degrees, she was Jake's secret weapon against cyber threats. Jake, we've identified 17 different backdoors Vincent installed in the city's infrastructure, Dr. Reeves reported. The good news is they're all based on security protocols he helped design when he was still with Morrison Tech. The bad news is some of them are in systems that could cause real damage if triggered. What kind of damage? Agent Chen asked. Hospital life support systems, air traffic control, the stock exchange. Dr. Reeves pulled up a map showing red zones across Manhattan. Vincent could theoretically cause casualties if he decides to go scorched earth. Madison felt a chill. The stakes kept getting higher. Emma, how long to neutralize all the back doors? Jake asked. Working with the FBI's cyber unit? Maybe 4 hours? But Jake? Dr. Reeves hesitated. If Vincent realizes what we're doing and triggers everything at once, he won't, Madison said firmly. Because we're going to give him exactly what he wants, the chance to gloat publicly about his genius. Vincent's ego won't let him destroy everything before he's had the chance to humiliate Jake in front of the world. Jake's phone buzzed with a text. "Jake, I'm getting impatient. You have 5 minutes to come downstairs alone, or I start with the Children's Hospital on 5th Avenue." The room went silent as Jake read the message aloud. "That's it," Agent Chen said. "We move now." "No," Madison and Jake said simultaneously. "Agent Chen, if you spook him now, people will die," Madison explained. "Vincent's not bluffing about the hospital, but he also won't hurt anyone if he thinks he's winning." "Madison's right," Jake added. "Vincent wants his moment of triumph. He wants to watch me beg, wants to humiliate me publicly, wants to prove he was always the superior partner. Give him that stage, and he'll delay any real violence until he's savored his victory." Agent Chen looked skeptical, but Dr. Reeves nodded in agreement. "Agent Chen, I've worked with Vincent Cross for 3 years. Jake's assessment is accurate. Vincent's need for recognition always trumps his tactical judgment." Marcus was checking his camera equipment one more time. "Madison, we're live in 30 seconds. You sure about this approach?" Madison looked around the room at all the people who were trusting her plan: FBI agents, police officers, tech experts, security personnel. Then she looked at Jake, who was watching her with complete confidence in her abilities. "I'm sure," she said. "Vincent Cross wants a show? Let's give him one he'll never forget." At exactly 10:30 a.m., Jake's phone rang. Vincent's number. "Showtime," Madison murmured, nodding to Marcus to start recording. Jake answered, putting the call on speaker. "Vincent." "Jake, I was beginning to think you'd decided to let Manhattan burn rather than face me like a man." Vincent's voice carried that same cold amusement from earlier, but now it was being broadcast live to the Tribune's website and picked up by every major news network in the city. "I'm here, Vincent, in the lobby, like you asked." "Excellent. But I see you've brought friends." "How disappointing. I specifically said to come alone." Madison stepped forward. "Vincent Cross? This is Madison Clark, investigative journalist with the New York Tribune. I'm here to give you the opportunity to tell your side of the story." There was a pause, then Vincent's laughter echoed through the lobby. "Madison Clark, the woman who started this whole mess with her persistent digging. How fitting that you should be here for the finale. Mr. Cross, you're currently holding the city of Manhattan hostage through cyber attacks on critical infrastructure. Would you like to explain your motivations to our viewers?" "Our viewers?" Vincent's voice sharpened. "Jake, you didn't mention this was being broadcast." "Vincent," Jake said calmly, "you wanted a public confession. Madison's giving you the biggest stage in New York City. Every major network is picking up this feed. You have the audience you've always craved." Dr. Reeves was typing furiously on her laptop, using Vincent's voice patterns to trace his location through the building's internal communication systems. She held up a tablet showing a detailed building schematic with a red dot moving through the lower levels. Another pause, longer this time. Madison held her breath, wondering if Vincent would realize the trap and disconnect. Then his ego took over, exactly as they'd predicted. "Perfect," Vincent said, and they could hear the satisfaction in his voice. "Then let me tell the world the truth about Jake Morrison and Morrison Tech." Agent Chen was frantically typing on her computer, coordinating with teams positioned throughout the building. She held up 5 fingers, then 4, then 3, indicating they needed to keep him talking for at least 3 more minutes to coordinate the arrest teams. "Mr. Cross," Madison said in her best interviewer voice, "you were Jake Morrison's business partner in the early days of Morrison Tech. Can you tell us what led to your departure from the company?" "My departure?" Vincent's laugh was bitter. "Is that what Jake told you?" "I didn't depart, Ms. Clark. I was betrayed, stabbed in the back by the man I trusted more than a brother." Jake's jaw tightened, but Madison touched his arm gently, reminding him to let Vincent talk. "Jake Morrison built his fortune on my innovations, my code, My genius. Morrison Tech should have been Cross Morrison Tech, but Jake couldn't stand sharing the spotlight. So he manufactured evidence of wrongdoing, bought out my shares for a fraction of their value, and had me blacklisted from the tech industry. That's a serious accusation, Mr. Cross. Do you have evidence to support these claims? Evidence? Vincent's voice rose. I have more than evidence. I have justice. For the past 6 months, I've been systematically destroying every government contract Morrison Tech has pursued. I've been selling their secrets to foreign buyers. I've been making Jake Morrison pay for what he stole from me. Carmen was taking notes, documenting every confession for the legal team. Detective Rodriguez was coordinating with patrol units throughout the city, ensuring Vincent's accomplices couldn't escape if he had any. Agent Chen held up 2 fingers. 2 more minutes. Madison looked at Jake, who nodded slightly. Time to push Vincent into the complete confession they needed. Mr. Cross, you're admitting on live television to corporate espionage, selling government secrets to foreign entities, and cyber terrorism. Those are federal crimes punishable by life in prison. Why are you confessing to these activities? Because, my dear Madison, by the time this broadcast ends, I'll be on a private jet to a country with no extradition treaty, and Jake Morrison will be ruined. Vincent's voice was triumphant. I've already transferred $50 million in stolen government contracts to offshore accounts. I have enough classified information to start my own country if I wanted to. Dr. Reeves was working with 3 other tech specialists, using Vincent's ongoing communication to map and neutralize his cyber weapons in real time. Lines of code scrolled across multiple screens as they systematically dismantled his network. And the people of Manhattan? The hospitals without power? The traffic systems in chaos? Madison pressed. Collateral damage in a war Jake Morrison started when he betrayed me. Vincent's voice carried no remorse. Though I must admit, watching this city scramble like ants when their technology fails has been quite entertaining. Special Agent Miller was listening to his earpiece and nodding to Agent Chen. Teams were in position. Agent Chen held up 1 finger. Almost there. Jake stepped forward, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd built a billion-dollar company from nothing. Vincent, you want the truth? Here's the truth. I fired you because you were selling client data to competitors. I bought out your shares because you were using company resources to sabotage our own contracts. And I had you investigated because you threatened to kill me and everyone I cared about. Lies! Vincent's composure was starting to crack. I have recordings, Vincent. I have documentation. I have testimony from a dozen employees who witnessed your threats and your theft. Jake's voice was steady, controlled. You weren't betrayed. You were caught. Dr. Reeves looked up from her computer and nodded to Jake. They'd successfully neutralized 60% of Vincent's backdoors. Furthermore, Jake continued, the government contracts you claim to have stolen? Most of them were decoys. Morrison Tech has been working with federal agencies for months to feed you false information while we tracked your activities. Impossible. Vincent's voice was sharp with panic now. Vincent, did you really think I wouldn't notice when my former business partners started bidding against us with inside information? Did you think I wouldn't recognize your coding signatures in the cyber attacks against our systems? Jake's voice carried a hint of disappointment. You taught me to be thorough, Vincent. Maybe too well. Madison watched Jake coordinate this complex operation while simultaneously confronting his former friend, and felt that familiar surge of pride and attraction. This was Jake Morrison at his most formidable, brilliant, strategic, and absolutely in control. Agent Chen nodded and gave a thumbs up. They had him. Vincent Cross, Agent Chen called out, stepping into the speaker range. This is FBI Agent Sarah Chen. You are under arrest for terrorism, treason, corporate espionage, and cybercrimes against the United States government. We have traced your location, and federal agents are moving to apprehend you at this moment. We... The silence that followed was deafening. Then Vincent's voice came through the speakers, no longer smooth and confident, but sharp with panic and rage. "You think you've won? Jake, I can bring down every power grid on the East Coast with the touch of a button." "Actually, Vincent, you can't." Jake was typing rapidly on his laptop, coordinating with Dr. Reeves and her team. "While you've been confessing to federal crimes on live television, I've been systematically shutting down every backdoor you installed in the city's infrastructure. You see, you taught me well, but you forgot one crucial thing." "What?" "I'm not the same programmer you knew 3 years ago. I've gotten better. Much better." Jake's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Every system you've hacked, I'm taking back. Every virus you've planted, I'm deleting. Every secret account you've hidden, I'm freezing." On the screens around the lobby, they could see power being restored across Manhattan. Traffic lights returned to normal operation. Emergency services came back online. The stock exchange resumed trading. "Impossible!" Vincent's voice cracked. "Those systems have triple encryption." "Had triple encryption," Jake corrected. "Vincent, you always underestimated the importance of teamwork. You see, while you've been planning revenge, I've been building relationships. Morrison Tech's cybersecurity team includes some of the most brilliant minds in the industry, and they've been working around the clock to undo your damage." Dr. Reeves pulled up a final screen showing all systems green. "Jake, that's the last of them. Vincent Cross is officially locked out of every system he compromised." Madison watched Jake coordinate with his team, his voice calm and authoritative as he systematically dismantled Vincent's cyber empire, and felt a surge of pride so strong it almost brought tears to her eyes. This was the man she'd fallen in love with. Brilliant, protective, and absolutely unstoppable when he was fighting for the people he cared about. Agent Chen was listening to her earpiece. "All units, suspect is in custody. Vincent Cross has been apprehended attempting to flee through the building's parking garage." "Outstanding work, everyone," Special Agent Miller added. "We've also arrested 3 accomplices who were coordinating the infrastructure attacks from a van outside the city. This network is completely shut down." The lobby erupted in cheers and applause. Marcus was grinning as he filmed the celebration. Detective Rodriguez was shaking hands with Agent Chen. Jake's security team was congratulating each other. Dr. Reeves and her tech team were high-fiving over their laptops, and in the middle of it all, Madison was staring at Jake with an expression of complete amazement. "Jake Morrison," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "That was the most incredible thing I've ever witnessed." Jake closed his laptop and turned to face her, that devastating smile spreading across his face. "Madison Clark, that was the most incredible partnership I've ever experienced." "Partnership?" Madison raised an eyebrow, stepping closer to him. "Is that what we're calling this?" "Well," Jake said, his voice dropping to that intimate tone that made her knees weak, "I was thinking we could call it something else. Something more permanent." The lobby went quiet as everyone realized what was about to happen. Jake reached into his jacket pocket. "Jake," Madison said softly, "what are you doing?" "Something I've been thinking about since the moment you crashed into my life." Jake pulled out his phone and quickly typed something. "But first I need to make sure this is perfect." Madison looked confused until her own phone buzzed. A text from Jake, even though he was standing right in front of her. "Madison Clark, 3 days ago you literally ran into my life and changed everything. You're brilliant, fearless, and the most amazing woman I've ever met. I love your dedication to the truth, your courage in the face of danger, and the way you make grilled cheese sandwiches at midnight. Will you marry me?" Madison looked up from her phone to find Jake dropping to one knee. "Madison Clark," he said aloud, his voice carrying clearly through the silent lobby. 3 days ago you crashed into my life, literally, and turned everything upside down. You challenged me, inspired me, and showed me what it means to have a true partner." Madison's hands flew to her mouth as Jake pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. "I know what you're thinking," Jake continued with a smile. This is crazy. We've known each other for 3 days. Normal people would wait, get to know each other better, date for a reasonable amount of time. Jake. But Madison, I've been waiting my whole life to find someone who sees me for who I really am. Someone who challenges me to be better. Someone who makes me want to deserve their love. Jake opened the box, revealing a stunning emerald-cut diamond surrounded by smaller stones in a vintage setting. I had this ring designed for you this morning. The center stone is a diamond, but the surrounding stones are emeralds, because the first thing I noticed about you was how your eyes light up when you're pursuing a story. Madison was vaguely aware that Marcus was still filming, that Agent Chen was smiling, that Detective Rodriguez was shaking his head with amusement, that the entire room was holding its breath. Madison, you're the bravest, most brilliant, most incredible woman I've ever met. You see through people's facades and find the truth. You fight for justice even when it's dangerous. You make me laugh. You make me think. And you make me want to be the kind of man who deserves to stand beside you. Jake. Madison's voice was barely a whisper. You've shown me what real partnership looks like. Not just in stopping Vincent, but in everything. The way you trusted me with your investigation. The way you included me in your plan. The way you made me feel like we were stronger together than either of us could be alone. Jake's green eyes were intense, sincere. Madison, I don't just want to be your partner in stopping bad guys. I want to be your partner in everything. I want to wake up every morning knowing that whatever challenges we face, we'll face them together. Madison felt tears starting to form in her eyes. I know this is fast. I know it's crazy. I know a rational person would think we're both out of our minds. Jake's smile was soft, vulnerable. But Madison, when I think about my future, every single image includes you. Reading newspapers together in bed. Working on investigations together. Building a life together. Growing old together. Carmen was discreetly wiping tears from her eyes. Dr. Reeves had stopped typing and was watching with rapt attention. Madison Clark, Jake said, his voice strong and clear. I love you. I love your passion for justice, your courage in the face of danger, your brilliant mind, and your incredible heart. I love the way you challenge me and the way you believe in me. I love that you make me want to be worthy of you every single day. The entire lobby was silent except for the soft sound of Madison's tears. Will you marry me? Will you be my partner in crime fighting and coffee drinking and changing the world? Will you let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve the amazing woman who literally crashed into my heart? Madison looked down at Jake, still on one knee, still holding that beautiful ring, still looking at her like she was the most precious thing in his world. She looked around the lobby at all the people who had become part of their story. Agent Chen and Detective Rodriguez, who had helped them catch a terrorist. Marcus, who had documented their journey. Dr. Reeves and Carmen, who had supported them. All the law enforcement officers who had trusted their plan. Then she looked back at Jake's hopeful green eyes. Jake Morrison, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the quiet lobby. 3 days ago, I thought you were a corporate villain I needed to expose. Yesterday, I thought you were a dangerous man I needed to avoid. This morning, I thought you were a good man I was falling for. Jake's expression was hopeful but uncertain. Right now, watching you take down a terrorist while protecting an entire city, seeing you on your knees asking me to spend my life with you, listening to you tell me you love me in front of half the FBI. Madison smiled through her tears. Right now, I know you're the man I want to spend the rest of my life with. Is that a yes? Jake Morrison, you impossible, wonderful, crazy man who proposed to me with a text message and a speech, and the most beautiful ring I've ever seen. Madison laughed through her tears. Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll be your partner in everything. Yes, I love you too. The lobby exploded in cheers as Jake slipped the ring onto Madison's finger and stood to kiss her. It was their third kiss, but it was the one that counted. the one that sealed their future, surrounded by the people who had helped them find each other and witnessed their journey from strangers to partners, to fiancés in the span of 3 impossible days. When they finally broke apart, both of them laughing and crying at the same time, the applause was thunderous. "You know," Detective Rodriguez called out, "in 20 years of police work, I've never seen a case that ended with a successful marriage proposal." "First time for everything," Madison called back, not taking her eyes off Jake's face. Agent Chen approached them with a smile. "Congratulations, both of you. That was beautiful. But I do need to get statements from both of you for the federal case against Vincent Cross." "Of course," Madison said, finally tearing her gaze away from her engagement ring. "Agent Chen, will the charges stick?" "Oh, they'll stick. Between his recorded confession, the financial evidence you compiled, the cyber attacks we documented, and the additional evidence we'll gather from his computers, Vincent Cross is looking at multiple life sentences without parole." Agent Chen's smile was satisfied. "Ms. Clark, that was brilliant journalism. You got him to confess to everything we needed on record." "We got him to confess," Madison corrected, squeezing Jake's hand. "This was definitely a team effort." Marcus approached with his camera still rolling. "Madison, Jake, any comments for the Tribune's viewers about this incredible story?" Madison looked at Jake, who nodded encouragingly. "Marcus, this story started as an investigation into potential corporate misconduct. Instead, it became a story about the importance of trust, partnership, and fighting for what's right." Madison smiled at Jake. "It also became the greatest love story I've ever been part of." "And Jake, any thoughts on the fact that you just proposed to the journalist who was investigating your company?" Jake laughed, pulling Madison closer. "Marcus, I learned that sometimes the people who challenge us the most are the ones who help us become our best selves." Madison made me want to be worthy of her respect. She made Morrison Tech better by holding us accountable. And she made me better by believing in me even when she had every reason not to. "One final question. When's the wedding?" Madison and Jake looked at each other. "Well," Jake said slowly, "we do seem to move pretty fast." "How fast are we talking?" Madison asked with a grin. "I was thinking, next weekend?" "Next weekend?" Madison laughed. "Jake Morrison, you are absolutely impossible." "Is that a no?" Madison looked around the lobby one more time. At the law enforcement officers who had helped them catch a terrorist. At the journalists who had helped them expose the truth. At the security team who had protected them through everything. At Dr. Reeves, who had helped save the city's infrastructure. Then she looked at the man who had somehow managed to win her heart in 3 days, while simultaneously saving her life and the city of Manhattan. "Next weekend sounds perfect," she said. "But I have one condition." "Anything." "Detective Rodriguez has to officiate, if he's willing." Detective Rodriguez grinned. "Madison, I'd be honored. I'll get ordained online tonight." 3 hours later, Madison and Jake sat in a quiet conference room at FBI headquarters, having given their complete statements about the Vincent Cross case. Agent Chen had finally released them, declaring the investigation complete and Vincent's network completely dismantled. "So," Madison said, admiring her engagement ring in the afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows, "that happened?" "Which part? The catching a terrorist part or the getting engaged part?" Jake asked, reaching over to take her hand. "Both. All of it." Madison shook her head in amazement. "Jake, 72 hours ago I didn't even know you existed. Now we're engaged. We've stopped a cyber terrorist. And I'm pretty sure I just lived through the most intense 3 days of my entire life. Any regrets?" Madison looked at this incredible man who had somehow become the most important person in her world in less than a week. "Just one." Jake's expression grew concerned. "What?" "I regret that it took a fire alarm malfunction for us to meet. Think of all the time we wasted not knowing each other existed." Jake's relieved laughter filled the conference room. "Madison Clark, soon to be Madison Morrison Clark, I love you more than I thought it was possible to love another person. Just Morrison Clark? Well, I was thinking Madison Morrison Clark, future Pulitzer Prize winner. But that seemed a little long for the wedding invitations. Madison raised an eyebrow. You think I'm going to win a Pulitzer for this story? Sweetheart, you just exposed an international terrorism conspiracy, conducted a live television interview that led to the arrest of a cyber terrorist, and helped save critical infrastructure for an entire city. If that doesn't win a Pulitzer, there's no justice in the world. We did that, Madison corrected. Jake, none of this would have been possible without you. Your technical knowledge, your understanding of Vincent's psychology, your resources. Madison, you're the one who figured out how to trap him. You're the one who convinced the FBI to trust us. You're the one who kept me focused when all I wanted to do was hide you somewhere safe. Jake brought her hand to his lips and kissed her palm gently. You're the hero of this story. We're the heroes of this story, Madison said firmly. Partners, remember? Partners, Jake agreed. In everything. Madison's phone buzzed with a text from her mother. Saw you on the news getting engaged. Call me immediately. Is he rich? Is he handsome? When do I meet him? Are you pregnant? Why didn't you tell me you were dating someone? Madison showed Jake the text, and they both burst into laughter. I should probably call her, Madison said. And my dad, and my sister, and pretty much everyone I know, because I have a feeling this story is going to be everywhere. Madison, are you prepared for that? The media attention, I mean. Dating a tech CEO is going to put you in the spotlight whether you want it or not. Madison considered this. It was true. Marrying Jake Morrison would inevitably change her life in ways she hadn't fully considered yet. Jake, can I ask you something? Anything. When you decided to propose today, in front of all those people, with cameras rolling, was part of you thinking about the publicity? About how a dramatic proposal would look in the media? Jake's expression grew serious. Madison, I proposed to you today because 3 days ago my life was successful but empty, and now it's full of purpose and joy and love. I proposed because I couldn't imagine spending another day without knowing you'd agreed to be my partner in everything. I proposed because I love you more than I've ever loved anything, and I wanted the whole world to know it. Lee, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about the timing. Vincent was neutralized. You were safe. We were surrounded by people who had become part of our story. It felt like the perfect moment to start our future. Jake squeezed her hand. Madison, if you're worried about the publicity, we can have a private ceremony. We can keep our relationship out of the media. I'll do whatever makes you comfortable. Madison looked at this man who had just offered to sacrifice public recognition of their relationship to make her comfortable, and felt her heart swell with love. Jake Morrison, you just proposed to me on live television in front of half the FBI after we took down a terrorist together. I think the ship has sailed on, keeping this relationship private. So you're okay with the attention? I'm a journalist, Jake. I understand media attention. And honestly, Madison grinned. I kind of like the idea of being known as the woman who married the man who saved Manhattan's infrastructure. Actually, I think you'll be known as the woman who exposed the conspiracy in the first place. Either way, we're going to be famous. Madison, there's something else I should probably mention about being married to me. What's that? Morrison Tech is about to become a very, very successful company. The government contracts will get after this. The private sector interest in our cybersecurity services. We're looking at exponential growth. Jake, are you telling me you're about to become even richer than you already are? Significantly richer. Madison, in a year or two, Morrison Tech could be worth billions. Which means I'm marrying a future billionaire. Madison looked thoughtful. Jake, will that change things between us? Only if you let it. Madison, I don't care if Morrison Tech becomes the biggest company in the world or if it goes bankrupt tomorrow. All I care about is that whatever happens, we face it together." Madison stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city they'd helped save. Jake followed her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Jake, can I tell you something?" "Always. I've spent my entire career trying to expose corruption and hold powerful people accountable. I became a journalist because I believe in truth and justice and making the world better. I know. It's one of the things I love most about you. Marrying you doesn't change that. If anything, it makes me more committed to using whatever platform I have to fight for what's right." Madison leaned back against him. "Jake Morrison, you're about to be married to a woman who will spend her life investigating people just like you." "Good," Jake said firmly. "The world needs more people like you. And I need someone who will keep me honest, who will challenge me to always do the right thing, who will never let me forget that power comes with responsibility. Even if it means I investigate Morrison Tech again someday, especially if it means that. Madison, I want to build a company that can withstand any investigation because we have nothing to hide. I want to build a relationship that can withstand any challenge because it's built on trust and honesty. Jake turned her around to face him. I want to build a life with you that makes the world better." Madison looked into those green eyes that had become her home and realized that 3 days ago she'd been looking for a story. Instead, she'd found her future. "Jake Morrison," she said softly, "I love you. I love your integrity, your intelligence, your protectiveness, and your terrible jokes. I love the way you make me feel safe and challenged and cherished all at the same time." "Ali." "Madison Clark," Jake replied. "I love you. I love your courage, your passion, your brilliant mind, and your incredible heart. I love that you make me want to be worthy of you every single day." They kissed softly, a promise of all the years to come. When they broke apart, Madison's phone was ringing. Marcus's number. "I should take this," she said reluctantly. "Madison!" Marcus's voice was excited. "The story just went viral. Every major news network in the country is picking it up. We're getting interview requests from everyone: CNN, ABC, NBC, The Times, The Post." "Marcus, slow down. What kind of interview requests?" "Everyone wants to interview the couple who took down a terrorist and got engaged on live TV." "Madison, this is huge. This could make your career." Madison looked at Jake, who was listening with an amused expression. "Marcus, can we talk about this tomorrow? It's been a long day." Of course. But Madison, you need to start thinking about how you want to handle this. This story is going to follow you for the rest of your career." After Madison hung up, Jake pulled her close again. "Any second thoughts about marrying a man who's going to make you famous?" he asked. "Any second thoughts about marrying a woman who's going to interview you for the rest of your life?" she countered. "Not a single one." "Then I guess we're really doing this." "I guess we are." Jake smiled. "Madison Morrison Clark, I can't wait to marry you." "Jake Morrison, I can't wait to be your wife." 1 week later, the wedding Central Park had never looked more beautiful. Detective Rodriguez, now officially ordained after a very quick online course, stood beneath an arch of white roses and green ivy, grinning as he watched Madison and Jake approach from opposite ends of the pathway. Madison wore a stunning, vintage-inspired lace dress that somehow managed to be both elegant and practical, because even on her wedding day, she was still a journalist who might need to chase a story. Her hair was swept up in an elegant bun with small emerald pins that matched her engagement ring, and she carried a bouquet of white roses and eucalyptus. Jake wore a perfectly tailored charcoal gray suit with a white rose boutonniere, and when he saw Madison walking toward him, his smile was so bright it could have powered the entire city. The guest list was small but meaningful. Agent Chen and her partner, Dr. Reeves and her team from Morrison Tech, Carmen and several of Jake's employees, Marcus and the Tribune staff, Madison's family who had flown in from Chicago, and surprisingly, several FBI agents who had become invested in their love story over the past week. Madison's sister Emma was her maid of honor, while Jake's best friend David, Morrison Tech's CFO, stood as his best man. But the most honored guest was Vincent Cross's grandmother, Mrs. Elena Cross, an elegant 82-year-old Italian woman who had specifically requested to attend. "I raised that boy better," she had told Jake when she called. "Vincent's choices are his own, but I want to see the good man he tried to destroy find happiness. Plus, I want to meet the woman brave enough to marry a Morrison." As Madison reached the altar, she and Jake just looked at each other for a moment, both of them laughing softly at the impossibility of everything that had led them to this moment. "Friends, family, and law enforcement officers," Detective Rodriguez began, "we are gathered here today to celebrate the marriage of Madison Clark and Jake Morrison, two people who prove that sometimes the best love stories begin with complete chaos." Laughter rippled through the small crowd. "Madison and Jake have asked me to tell you a little bit about how they met, though I suspect most of you have seen the news coverage by now." More laughter. 7 days ago, these two collided in a hotel hallway during a fire alarm, resulting in what Jake immediately declared was grounds for marriage. Madison, being a sensible woman, thought he was completely crazy. Madison grinned at Jake, who winked back at her. What followed was a story that sounds like something from a movie. A journalist investigating a CEO, a dangerous conspiracy, a citywide crisis, and a love that grew stronger with every challenge they faced together. Detective Rodriguez's voice grew more serious. "But what I witnessed over the past week wasn't just a dramatic story. It was two people discovering that they were stronger together than they ever could be apart. I watched Jake become more thoughtful and protective when Madison was in danger. I watched Madison become more trusting and vulnerable when Jake proved his character. I watched them build a partnership based on absolute trust, mutual respect, and genuine love." Madison felt tears starting to form in her eyes. "Marriage isn't just about finding someone you can live with. It's about finding someone you can't imagine living without. Someone who makes you better. Someone who challenges you to grow. Someone who stands beside you when life gets complicated." Detective Rodriguez smiled. "Jake and Madison, you've already proven you can handle complicated." The crowd chuckled. Now Jake and Madison have written their own vows, which I'm told are considerably longer than the traditional version. Jake stepped forward first, taking Madison's hands in his. "Madison," he began, his voice clear and steady, "a week ago, I thought I knew what I wanted from life. Success, respect, maybe eventually a family. I thought I was happy. Then you crashed into my life, literally, and showed me the difference between being successful and being fulfilled. You challenged every assumption I had about myself, about my company, about what really matters." Madison was trying not to cry and completely failing. "Madison, you are the bravest person I know. You chase truth even when it's dangerous. You fight for justice even when it's difficult. You see the best in people even when they disappoint you. You made me want to be worthy of your respect before I even dared to hope for your love." Jake's voice grew stronger, more confident. "I promise to always tell you the truth, even when it's hard. I promise to support your career and your dreams, even when they take you away from me. I promise to stand beside you when you're fighting for what's right, even when it puts us both at risk. I promise to make you laugh when you're stressed, to bring you coffee when you're working late, and to always remember that you're the brilliant, independent, incredible woman who chose to love me back. Most importantly, I promise to never take for granted the miracle of having you in my life. Every day with you is a gift I don't deserve, but will treasure forever." Jake's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried to every person present. "Madison Clark, you are my partner, my best friend, my greatest adventure, and the love of my life. I can't wait to spend the rest of our lives proving that the best accidents lead to the most beautiful destinations." There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. Madison took a shaky breath and began her vows. Jake, she said, her voice strong despite her tears, I spent 3 months investigating you before we met, convinced I was going to expose your secrets and hold you accountable for corporate misconduct. Instead, I discovered a man who employs over 1,000 people and treats them like family. A man who donates millions to charity without seeking recognition. A man who would sacrifice everything to protect the people he cares about. Madison's voice grew stronger. But what I love most about you isn't your success, or your generosity, or even your incredible ability to save cities from cyber terrorists. What I love most is how you see me. You see my ambition as something to admire, not something to tolerate. You see my independence as something to support, not something to change. You see my passion for justice as something to encourage, not something to redirect. Jake, you make me feel like the most capable, intelligent, beautiful woman in the world. Not because you ignore my flaws, but because you love me in spite of them. Madison paused, looking directly into Jake's green eyes. I promise to always challenge you to be your best self, even when it's uncomfortable. I promise to trust your judgment and support your decisions, even when I don't understand them. I promise to be your partner in every adventure, whether we're stopping terrorists or just figuring out what to have for dinner. I promise to never let you forget how proud I am to be loved by you, how grateful I am for your protection, and how honored I am to be your wife. Most importantly, I promise to love you with the same intensity and dedication that I bring to everything else I care about. And Jake Morrison, I care about you more than any story I've ever chased, any truth I've ever uncovered, any dream I've ever pursued. Madison's voice was barely a whisper now, but every word carried perfectly in the silent park. 3 days was long enough to fall in love with you. Forever won't be long enough to show you how much you mean to me. By the time Madison finished, even Agent Chen was wiping her eyes, and Dr. Reeves was openly sobbing. Detective Rodriguez cleared his throat and continued with the ceremony. Do you, Jake Morrison, take Madison Clark to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold in sickness and in health, in good times and bad, for richer or poorer, as long as you both shall live? I do, Jake said firmly, never taking his eyes off Madison's face. Do you, Madison Clark, take Jake Morrison to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold in sickness and in health, in good times and bad, for richer or poorer, as long as you both shall live? I do, Madison said, her voice clear and certain. The rings? David stepped forward with Jake's ring, a simple platinum band that Madison had chosen because she said it was strong, elegant, and built to last, just like him. Eenie thee. Emma presented Madison's wedding band, a delicate platinum ring with tiny diamonds that perfectly complemented her engagement ring. Jake, place this ring on Madison's finger and repeat after me. With this ring, I thee wed. With this ring, I thee wed, Jake said, sliding the band onto Madison's finger. Madison, place this ring on Jake's finger and repeat after me. With this ring, I thee wed. With this ring, I thee wed, Madison said, her hands shaking slightly as she placed the ring on Jake's finger. By the power vested in me by the state of New York, and a very quick internet ordination course, Detective Rodriguez said with a grin, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Jake, you may kiss your bride. Jake cupped Madison's face in his hands and kissed her softly, tenderly, as their friends and family erupted in cheers and applause. When they broke apart, both of them were laughing and crying at the same time. Ladies and gentlemen, Detective Rodriguez announced, I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Morrison. As rice and rose petals flew through the air, Mrs. Cross had insisted on both. Madison and Jake walked back down the aisle together, their hands intertwined, their faces glowing with happiness. The reception. The reception was held at the Rainbow Room, with views of the entire city they had helped save. Marcus had arranged for the Tribune to sponsor the celebration in exchange for exclusive photo rights, making it the most documented wedding in recent memory. During dinner, Agent Chen stood to give a toast. "I've been with the FBI for 15 years," she began, "and I've never seen civilians handle a crisis situation with the professionalism and courage that Madison and Jake demonstrated last week. But more than that, I've never seen two people fall in love while fighting terrorism. Most relationships crumble under that kind of pressure. Madison and Jake got stronger." Agent Chen raised her glass. "To Madison and Jake Morrison, may your marriage be as strong as your partnership, and may you never need to save the city again." Everyone laughed and raised their glasses. Dr. Reeves was next. "Jake hired me 3 years ago when no other tech company would even interview a woman with purple hair and unconventional methods. He believed in my abilities when no one else would. See, last week I watched him trust Madison's plan completely, even when it meant putting himself at risk. Jake, you've always been a great boss, but watching you love Madison has taught me what it means to be a great partner. To Madison and Jake, thank you for showing us that the best teams are built on absolute trust and mutual respect." Mrs. Cross, despite being 82 years old, insisted on giving a toast in heavily accented English. "My grandson Vincent, he chose anger and revenge. But Jake Morrison, he chose love and forgiveness. Madison, you chose to see the good in a man my grandson tried to destroy." Mrs. Cross's voice was strong and clear. "This is how good triumphs over evil. Not with violence, but with love. Vincent, he could learn from you both." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Finally, Marcus stood with his glass raised. "Madison, I've been your editor for 5 years. I've watched you chase down corrupt politicians, expose corporate fraud, and risk your safety to uncover the truth. You're the best journalist I've ever worked with. But this week, I watched you become something even more impressive. A partner. Madison, you didn't just get the story. You became part of the story. And somehow, you made it better." Marcus's voice grew emotional. "Jake, welcome to the Tribune family. You're married to our star reporter, which means you're stuck with all of us. I hope you're ready for a lifetime of dinner conversations about investigative techniques and deadline stress. To Madison and Jake, may your love story be the one that inspires people to believe in happy endings." As the evening wound down, Madison and Jake found themselves alone on the terrace, looking out over the city lights. "Mrs. Morrison," Jake said, testing out the name, "how does it feel to be married?" "Mr. Morrison," Madison replied, "it feels exactly right. Though I have to say, I never imagined my wedding reception would include FBI agents and corporate executives and Italian grandmothers. I never imagined my wife would be a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist who helped me save Manhattan from a cyber terrorist. I haven't won the Pulitzer yet." "You will," Jake said confidently. "Madison, the story you wrote about the Vincent Cross conspiracy is the best piece of investigative journalism I've ever read. And I'm not just saying that because I'm married to the author." Madison leaned against the railing, looking out at the city where they'd found each other. "Jake, what happens now? We've caught the bad guy, saved the city, gotten married. What's our next adventure?" Jake wrapped his arms around her from behind, just like he had in the FBI conference room a week ago. "Whatever you want it to be. We could travel the world exposing corruption and fighting injustice. We could stay in New York and build Morrison Tech into a force for good. We could have kids and teach them to be brave and honest and kind." "All of the above?" Madison suggested. "All of the above," Jake agreed. "Madison, I meant what I said in my vows. Every day with you is going to be an adventure, and I can't wait to see where we go next." Madison turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had become her husband, her partner, her best friend, and the love of her life in the span of one incredible week. "Jake Morrison," she said softly, "I love you. I love our story. I love our future. And I love that we found each other in the most impossible way." "Madison Morrison," Jake replied, "I love you too. And I love that our story started with an accident and turned into destiny. They kissed softly under the New York City stars, two people who had proven that sometimes the best love stories begin with chaos, grow stronger through danger, and end with the promise of a lifetime of adventures together. As they held each other on the terrace of the Rainbow Room, 23 floors above the city where they'd first collided, Madison and Jake Morrison began the greatest adventure of all: marriage. And in the distance, the lights of Manhattan twinkled like a promise of all the stories yet to be written, all the challenges yet to be faced, and all the love yet to be shared. Epilogue. 1 year later, Madison Morrison Clark sat at her desk in the Tribune newsroom, typing the final paragraphs of her latest investigation. A story about government contract fraud that had taken 6 months to research and would probably result in congressional hearings. Her Pulitzer Prize sat on the shelf behind her desk, next to a framed photo of her and Jake dancing at their wedding. The plaque read, "For Outstanding Investigative Journalism, The Vincent Cross Conspiracy, How Love and Partnership Saved Manhattan." Her phone rang. Jake's number. "Hey, husband," she answered with a smile. "Hey, wife. Are you going to be late tonight? We have dinner with the Chen family at 7. I'll be done in 20 minutes. How was your day?" Morrison Tech just signed the biggest cybersecurity contract in company history with the Department of Defense. We're officially the most trusted tech company in America. "That's amazing! Jake, I'm so proud of you." "It wouldn't have happened without you, Madison. The Vincent Cross story established our reputation for integrity. Every client we meet mentions how impressed they were with our transparency during the crisis." Madison smiled, looking at the framed newspaper clipping on her desk, the front-page story about their engagement, with the headline, "Love Conquers All, Journalist and CEO Take Down Terrorist, Get Engaged on Live TV." "Jake, I have news too." "Good news or bad news?" "Depends on your perspective. I just got assigned to investigate Morrison Tech's new government contracts." There was a pause, then Jake's laughter filled her ear. "Madison Morrison Clark, are you telling me that my wife is about to investigate my company again?" "I'm telling you that your wife is about to make sure your company continues to deserve its reputation for integrity and transparency." "I love you so much, it's ridiculous." "I love you too. See you at home?" "See you at home." "Oh, and Madison." "Yeah?" "Thank you for crashing into my life. Thank you for asking me to marry you 30 seconds after we met. Best decision I ever made." Second best," Madison corrected. "What was the first?" "Choosing to trust you when I could have walked away." As Madison hung up the phone and finished her article, she reflected on the past year. Marriage to Jake had been everything she'd hoped for, and nothing like she'd expected. They'd traveled together, worked together, challenged each other, and supported each other through everything. She'd won the Pulitzer Prize, been promoted to senior investigative correspondent, and published a book about the Vincent Cross case that had become a bestseller. Jake had expanded Morrison Tech internationally, established the Madison Morrison Clark Foundation for Investigative Journalism, and somehow managed to become even more attractive when he talked passionately about cybersecurity and social responsibility. They'd bought a house in the suburbs with a big kitchen where Jake could perfect his grilled cheese recipe, and a home office where Madison could work on her investigations. They'd talked about having kids, traveled to Italy to visit Mrs. Cross, and spent every anniversary revisiting the hotel hallway where they'd first met. Their marriage wasn't perfect. They argued about Madison's tendency to work too late, and Jake's tendency to worry too much about her safety. But they'd learned to fight fair, apologize quickly, and never go to bed angry. Most importantly, they'd learned that being married to your best friend meant that every day felt like an adventure, even when that adventure was just figuring out whose turn it was to take out the trash. As Madison packed up her desk and headed home to her husband, she passed the hotel where they'd first met. The same hotel where, every year on their anniversary, they renewed their vows in the exact hallway where they'd collided. This year would mark their second anniversary, and Madison had a surprise for Jake. But that, she thought with a smile, would be a story for tomorrow. Tonight she just wanted to go home to the man who'd turned her life upside down in the best possible way, who'd proven that the best love stories really do begin with complete chaos. And as she walked through the streets of Manhattan, Madison Morrison Clark couldn't stop smiling at the thought that the best accident of her life had led to the greatest love story ever told.